This movie broke me in some very unique ways. It left me feeling empty, like no matter what happens in future installments, there is no salvaging this universe. It will never make sense. You could certainly say this with Godzilla vs. Kong, and a strong argument can be made, but I'd argue New Empire does such a thorough job of annihilating any chance this franchise has of being anything other than a nonsensical joke that laughs at the idea of being coherent, that it should be studied in any writing class as an example of how fundamentally broken something can get when you prioritize hollow spectacle over anything resembling narrative coherency. It's so incoherent that there's really no point in even watching any of the past films outside of maybe Godzilla vs. Kong. But I'll reference the others because I hate myself. And now that the preamble is done, let's finally get started and put this atrocity to rest. We start things off with an action-packed chase scene, with Kong being chased by a pack of wargs. However, Kong, being a very clever boy, is actually leading them into a trap. Multiple traps. Slight issue though. Why did Kong place them in an area that leads straight off a cliff? What if his traps fail? He'd be pretty fucked. Though I guess he could just climb down the cliffside. Also pretty lucky that the wargs didn't press their numbers advantage and fell for Kong's bluff. Also pretty lucky that the wargs just stood around and waited for Kong to trigger the trap. But it's fine, it's just a neat little action sequence to get the audience going. After Kong washes off the gore, he goes to eat his kill and breaks his tooth. Keep this in mind, I'm not done with it yet. Kong then hears another one of his species, but it turns out it's just a frog mimicking him, making Kong sad because he's lonely due to being reminded he's the last of his kind. We then cut to Eileen Andrews giving a speech as well as being interviewed. You remember Eileen, right? She was from the last movie. She taught Kong sign language and gave clunky exposition. Of course you don't remember her, because she wasn't a character, and now she's the main character of this movie. Amazing.
He's the last of his kind. Every day he searches for a family that he'll never find.
But you said earlier that you've only mapped 5% of Hollow Earth.
We have maps less than 5% of Hollow Earth.
Not sure how you can say that Kong will never find any of his species when you know next to nothing about Hollow Earth.
Humanity is lucky Godzilla's fighting the battles we can't.
Tell that to the people of Hong Kong. Tell that to the people of Honolulu. Tell that to the people of San Francisco. Tell that to the people of Pensacola. You would get a very strongly worded disagreement. I understand that from the audience's perspective, seeing Godzilla do Godzilla things is cool, but many people in universe would have vastly different opinions. I imagine that many people who've lost family members and loved ones would watch this interview and seethe at the mere idea of us being lucky to have Godzilla destroy homes and lives in territorial disputes. For now, we cut to Godzilla fighting Cthulhu Spider in Rome. Why is Godzilla killing it instead of using his place as the Alpha to tell him to fuck off? Well, the concept of the Alpha has been completely thrown away. Again, I'll get into this a bit more later, but rest assured I have some words. We cut back to Hollow Earth at a research base and we get some more bits from the Eileen interview.
For the billions in taxpayer dollars going to Hollow Earth and classified technologies like the mysterious Project Powerhouse.
Keep this in mind, I'm not done with it yet. She also has some more things to say about Godzilla.
Let's start with Godzilla. He stopped the attacking rogue tribes still in the city. Should we be worried?
It's clear to us now that Godzilla is a titan who protects us from other malicious titan threats.
Except when he doesn't. And protect is a pretty big stretch. Godzilla has not given a single shit about us. He protects us in the most secondary way possible. He doesn't care how much he destroys so long as the threat to his survival is neutralized. Eileen should know this. So either she's trying to make Godzilla using culturally important and irreplaceable structures as a bed perfectly fine, or the movie has adopted a perspective that is contradictory to this world's history. The research team then picks up a forming sinkhole that will be relevant later.
Tell the Italian military Rome would be flattened if it weren't for Godzilla. They can threaten him all they want.
And the Italian government has every right to be angry about a giant atomic dinosaur sleeping in one of their most important cultural monuments. And you guys specialize in Titans. How about you do your fucking job and give them some information that may help with getting Godzilla to safely leave? Monarch has been picking up some strange readings from Hollow Earth that we will certainly talk about later. We cut to Gia as she hallucinates a bunch of bullshit and somehow sees glimpses of the future. She's then snapped out of it and we see she's scribbled the earlier unknown wave patterns onto her desk and scantrons. Man, I hope the explanation for this will make sense and not be the most retarded thing imaginable. Eileen is called in and, hold on, a child made a mess and is being made to clean it up? As someone who works in custodial, this has never happened. I have seen entire portraits drawn onto desks, and not one child has ever been forced to wipe it off. Now look, I can accept giant monsters and sci-fi bullshit, but a school making a kid clean up an unnecessary mess? That's way too unbelievable. We also learned that Gia feels isolated because she's the last of her culture, hence why she worries about Kong. Not only is this a thematic parallel between the two, with both being the last of their respective societies, feeling isolated because of that, it's also one of the only bits of continuity from any previous movie that has any relevance. Kong was an integral figure in Iwi culture, so he is the last bit that Gia has left to remember her people, as well as forming a bond with him. And that feeling of not belonging makes Eileen feel worthless as a mother. This is prime real estate for some fantastic character work, and you can already guess what is done with it. Later that night, Eileen decides to watch a documentary on the destruction of the Iwi people.
For centuries, the Iwi tribe were the guardians of Skull Island, the ancestral home of the Great Kong. But when shifting storm patterns destroyed the island, the Iwi were annihilated, with only a single member of the tribe having survived.
One question that may pop up in your mind is, why is Eileen watching this? This is something that she already knows far better than anything that could be covered in a documentary. Well, it's because the movie doesn't think you remembered anything from the last one. And to be fair, given that the general statement for this film and the previous one is turn your brain off and don't think about it, I can see why they felt the need to include this. Eileen then compares Gia's scribblings to the Hollow Earth wave readings, and it turns out they're a match. We cut back to the Hollow Earth research base and see that it's populated by a bunch of clowns. Not only is there just one person in the main area, he's fast asleep. He doesn't wake up despite the rumbling, and then the research base is just destroyed. I'd assume that being in the most dangerous place on the planet would require more awareness. Why wouldn't they be in shifts? Why is this retard sleeping in the first place? Why does this place have no deterrents or defenses? Questions that are not important enough to consider, apparently. What is important to consider is this monster right here. Keep him in mind. I am definitely not done with him yet. Eileen goes to see Black Alex Jones about the readings.
Look, our analysts, they don't know what to make of this. They're talking in circles. They're saying radio interference, coincidence, but I know that you think outside of the box.
And none of the experts that have worked at Monarch for years can't think outside the box. Hell, show them Gia's scribblings and I'm pretty sure they'll reevaluate their position.
I didn't know who else to turn to.
You have access to multiple different experts in multiple different fields within Monarch alone. There have to be Monarch equivalents in other countries that could offer a different perspective. This dribbling tard should be at the bottom of the list of people to talk to. After Black Alex Jones agrees to help Eileen, we cut to Godzilla waking up and he continues to destroy parts of our history. Wonderful. Kong climbs out of a Hollow Earth portal and we see that his tooth infection has gotten really bad. And it's up to a new character, Vet Bro, to save him, which he does. How convenient that Kong crawled out of the portal Eileen was stationed at. How convenient that Kong crawled out of a portal that had a Monarch facility monitoring it. Out of the dozens of portals across the world, he picks the one that is most beneficial to him at random. Because if he picked a different portal, then it's possible his tooth infection would never have gotten treated in time, and he'd be incapacitated or even possibly dead. God, this movie is so fucking ass. Black Alex Jones manages to find a pattern to the readings.
I do have something. Whatever signal you guys are picking up, okay, we have seen similar patterns repeating over time, and each spike corresponds with a specific Titan event.
And the myriad of experts at Monarch couldn't figure this out. Why? No one managed to notice this pattern until Black Alex Jones? Are you actually shitting me? Also, tying these patterns into the previous movies makes no sense given none of those events had anything to do with them. The male Muto woke up from strip mining. Ghidorah was set free by Tywin and his organization. Godzilla's rampage was caused by Apex, and everything that happened on Skull Island was a consequence of the conflict between Kong and the military. This is such a piss attempt at a retcon that it's never given any greater explanation or justification. We just move right the fuck along.
Now look, I've looked at points of similarities in each waveform, and I compared them to that pattern.
What are you saying?
It's a distress call!
Wow, way to cut off the explanation as to how Black Alex Jones figured this out. Because now you've left me asking, how does Black Alex Jones even knows this is a distress call? Seems to be a pretty big leap in logic without an adequate explanation. But we have to get to those monster portions as fast as possible, so we have no time for any logical plot progression.
Well, we have to figure this out fast. The wolves are already at our door.
The government has been looking for an excuse to take over Hollow Earth operations.
But Monarch is a government agency. They already run it. Also, since fucking when have the bureaucrats been trying to take over Hollow Earth operations? When was this established? Well, we need some kind of ticking clock element for some reason, and I guess this fucking garbage is it. It's decided that a small group of people will go to Hollow Earth to investigate the signal. And who do they bring along for this very important assignment? Not properly equipped or trained individuals. Black Alex Jones, Vet Bro, Eileen, Fat Man, and Gia are the ones that go. Eileen I can kinda get. The signal is hurting her daughter, so as a parent she feels like it's her duty to go firsthand. Fat Man's attire suggests he's equipped and trained for this sort of thing, so he makes sense. Black Alex Jones is a civilian that isn't even employed by Monarch, so him going along is not only irresponsible legally, but also morally. He has no idea the horrors that await him and has no qualifications that could even be pulled to convince Eileen. Instead, he guilt trips her and it works. Eileen, you understand that if a civilian dies under your watch, that will 100% guarantee that your division will be taken over, as you would be rightfully considered a poor leader and fired at the very least. Vet Bro is in the same boat. Taking someone that has no qualifications for reconnaissance into an incredibly dangerous area of the planet, whose potential death would effectively ruin your entire operation. However, they do not compare to the utter retardation that is bringing Gia on this mission. This is your daughter, Eileen, the one person you love the most, and you're taking her into the most dangerous place on Earth where she could very likely be killed. You know what kind of horrifying monsters live there. You know the danger you'll be putting her in if you go there. This is extremely out of character for what little character she has. Her main concern is Gia's well-being and how to stop these visions. This is Eileen's most defining characteristic in this movie, and they've just shot it in the face. And no, the fact that she's the only one who can communicate with Kong doesn't explain this because, 1, that's an irrelevant part of the mission. Their ability to talk with Kong doesn't correlate with them trying to find the signal. 2, even if you want to say that talking with Kong would help, Gia isn't the only one who can communicate with Kong because Eileen also knows sign language. She was the one who taught it to him.
I have been signing the alphabet, basic commands. I thought that he showed recognition, but he never.
And don't tell me Kong wouldn't listen. He came to them for help with his tooth. He knows they helped him in the last movie and even saved his life. There is no reason he would not listen or respond to Eileen. I didn't think it was possible to be out of character in this movie, given how little character there is, but here we are. The TISM Brigade go into Hollow Earth right as Godzilla makes landfall and absorbs nuclear energy from a power plant in France. How have we not developed any deterrence or defenses at this point, especially around nuclear power plants? It's absolutely absurd to assert that humanity would still be using conventional weapons on Titans when we know they don't work. We would have developed weapons that would, at the very least, drive Titans away. But this would require building a world with a history, which would require actual thought being put into the script. The TISM Brigade arrive in Hollow Earth to find that the outpost has been destroyed.
What could have done this?
I don't know, Eileen. Maybe one of the countless giant monsters. Perhaps that's what caused it, you brainless frog.
I don't understand. We've had this outpost for years without incident.
I don't believe for a single second that this outpost hasn't had any incidents despite being down here for years. You are surrounded by horrible nightmare creatures. One of them would have gotten curious at some point. Eileen spots a giant handprint on the side of a cliff, and they all decide to go to the surface. They have families to inform, and without any of the resources of the outpost, they are even more ill-equipped. And of course the situation is now even more dangerous for Gia and the civilians. I am of course fucking with you. They instead press on, because they're stupid. We cut to Kong, who hears a noise and decides to investigate. The noise came from the sinkhole from earlier in the movie. I cannot wait to explain why this is retarded, but we'll have to wait. Kong then comes across an opening behind a waterfall and meets Dewey Kong. Oh boy, the cute animal sidekick is here. God, I want him to die already, and we've just met the little bastard. A description he earns when he baits Kong into an ambush. Kong then fights off the other monkeys by using Dewey Kong as a weapon. As hilarious and satisfying as this is, it's also really damaging to Kong as a character. He's using a child as a weapon. Yeah, Dewey Kong attacked him, but this is excessive. We just saw Kong trying to make himself as non-threatening as possible to him, implying he understands that children should be handled with care. Or at the very least, you should try and make yourself as least threatening to children as possible. Compacting this inconsistency is that Kong is willing to save one of the adult monkeys trying to kill him, but then pushes him off the cliff for trying to kill him again. Then why bother saving him? It's not like Kong even regrets killing him. Also, how is Dewey Kong unscathed? Kong hit the other monkeys hard enough to knock them down. He should at least be a little bit bloodied. Kong forces Dewey to lead him to where the other monkey ran off to, as we cut back to the TISM Brigade as the ship begins freaking out from the flame waves. Gia also knows where it's coming from. How convenient that they just so happen to fly in the general direction of the wave's location despite having no idea where to even go. Also, why the fuck are you retards still here? Shouldn't you go back and report that the outpost has been destroyed and bring back more people? Preferably not including civilians and a child. Then you'd be better equipped when you enter the Hell Forest. Why are you all so dumb?
Only female mosquitoes drink blood, so they can grow their eggs. She needs it more than me.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Mosquitoes are also known for carrying deadly diseases, and God knows what super AIDS Hollow Earth mosquitoes might carry. Is there no fucking protocol? No rules when entering this place? Nothing? We can just do whatever idiotic actions we want? Fuck, maybe the government should take over Hollow Earth research. Not even they could fuck up this circus show, and that's saying a lot.
Now we got to take a detour. There's something here. Something doesn't smell right. It's not just you, Mikhail. You smell that? It's like rotting flesh.
Fat Man then decides to freak out because Vet Bro is taking the lead. Wouldn't Fat Man have more self-control than this if he's tasked with coming down here? I don't think I need to explain why excessive yelling is a bad thing in this hellscape. As if to prove my point, Fat Man is then eaten by a log. A couple things here. If the smell of rotting meat was coming from the log, wouldn't everyone else smell it? Wouldn't it be overwhelming? Also, shouldn't we know that not all life in this place would show up on thermals? We've spent years researching this shithole, and not one person discovered this? Or discovered that some monsters might camouflage themselves as logs or other parts of the environment? What exactly were we doing down here? Oh well, now that Fat Man has been killed, the rest of the Tism Brigade would now have to head back. After all, their only means of defending themselves is dead, and it's clearer now than ever that a child doesn't belong here. So, of course they go back to their ship and leave for the surface, right? We cut back to Godzilla, and he's headed for the Arctic to kill a Titan named Tiamat because her lair is in the direct path of solar radiation that he wants to absorb. Sure, why not? It's not the stupidest thing this movie has done or will do. Why are you still here? Again, this is not a place for a child or civilians to be. And yes, I know that Eileen was trying to call for extraction but couldn't get a signal. That is no excuse for going forward with this retarded mission, especially when your ship is still intact and functional. Unless these mouth breathers just weren't paying attention to where they were going. Ah yes, you see, but the monster log. Just go around it. Plus it's already eaten, so it's less likely to attack. And you still risk running into one if you continue forward, so there's no reason for any of these supposedly intelligent characters to go forward.
Why is everyone so fucking stupid?
They find ruins with symbols from Gia's people. Keep this in mind, I'm not done with it yet. They push forward into the ruins and come across a symbol of Mothra.
Mothra.
Queen of the monsters in Hollow Earth.
Her lineage must go back further than we thought.
How old did you think her lineage was in the first place then? Hollow Earth is the birthplace of all Titans.
Your theory that it's the birthplace of all Titans is fascinating.
It would only make sense that her lineage originates here. Also, if her and Godzilla have a symbiotic relationship, then both of their species would have had to have been around for at least as long as Godzilla's, which would mean it would predate humanity itself. A glowing bug lands on a triangle-shaped button, which prompts Gia to go over and push it, turning on an irrigation system that prompts Gia to follow the water to a massive wall of unknown substance. Good God, there is so much to unpack here. How does Gia even know that pushing this button will do anything? How does she know that it's a button in the first place? Because the iwi of Skull Island were living in huts made of sticks with no signs of this level of technology. Given the state of these ruins, it's pretty convenient that the irrigation system worked in the first place. It's also convenient that Gia followed the right stream of water to where the plot needed all of them to go. What possesses a person to write something so utterly contrived? A question I ask every time I come on here, but one that still needs to be repeated. That bro then touches the pulsating wall. My guy, you just saw a man get eaten by a log. Why would you even touch something that is pulsing down here? What is with everyone having the self-preservation skills of an ADHD chimp? We finally catch up with Kong and Dewey as Dewey leads Kong to a lake. It is, of course, a trap, as a giant snake attacks Kong. How is it Dewey was able to smell the snake, but Kong wasn't? Also, if you're going to make the main draw of your movie monster fights, then maybe show the fight between Kong and the snake on screen instead of cutting it. Instead, we focus on Dewey escaping before he is cut off by Kong's axe. How is Kong able to catch up to Dewey so quickly when he had a pretty good head start? Then we cut to Dewey and Kong eating the snake together, and there is an idea of a decent scene here. Dewey doesn't really know how to react to kindness, as he's only known fear and abuse his whole life. This, of course, ignores how Kong used him as a weapon and threatened him with violence without a second thought if he didn't do as Kong instructed. So why would Dewey feel any need to trust Kong even if he gave him food? But enough talking about that, let's go to Godzilla and Tiamat having a really lame fight before Godzilla kills her. Much like with Cthulhu Spider, why not tell Tiamat to fuck off? He is the alpha. He rules over all the Titans. That's why the third movie in this decaying clown condom of a universe is called King of the Monsters. Because at the end, he becomes the King of the Monsters. Fighting Tiamat risks injury, and considering Godzilla has a threat display, something animals have to avoid fighting, I'd imagine Godzilla wouldn't want to fight unless necessary. And if you have to have this shitty scuffle, then just have Tiamat not heed Godzilla's threat and attack. As for the scuffle itself, way to squander a fight in a 3D space. Yes, I know we get that later, but you still could have given us a little taste, you know. The Tism Brigade is captured by the iwi and are taken to a giant magic crystal.
It's an entire Iwi civilization protected within Hollow Earth.
Yes, it is. Astute observation, Black Alex Jones. I'm glad you brought this up. Now, if you're cursed like me and remember anything about the last movie, you may be asking yourself, how is it that people can be in Hollow Earth if the inversion of gravity while entering or exiting is enough to kill you?
When they try to enter, they had a gravitational inversion. A whole planet's worth of gravity reversed in a split second. They were crushed in an instant.
They needed specialized ships specifically for that, and I'm pretty damn sure none of these people have anything like those. So again, how the fuck are any of the Iwi down here even alive? Honestly, if you're going to try and emulate the goofier aspects of this franchise, then just have the Iwi be aliens that crash landed in Hollow Earth. We know aliens exist in this continuity in some form, and writing it so their technology would be advanced enough to survive a trip down here would slot right in. It also explained their telepathic means of communication. You know, I was partly memeing with this point, but that unironically makes more sense than any of this. Jesus Christ. Gia is taken to the Flume Queen, and Eileen freaks out about it.
No. You can't take her.
Then maybe you shouldn't have brought her here in the first place, you dumb bitch. After the Flume Queen gives Gia some mind fleams, they are taken to the giant magic crystal.
So wait, they send out this SOS, and then what? Godzilla hears it?
They woke him up.
What do you mean by woke Godzilla up? If you're referring to this movie, that makes no sense given it was Cthulhu Spider that caused him to enter the plot. If you're talking about in general, then that makes even less sense, as it was a nuclear sub that woke him up in 1954. Your attempt at a retcon is noted and duly ignored. Go fuck yourselves. Dewey leads Kong into Mordor and we cut back to the Tism Brigade. Not sure why they made this edit. Seems like the movie would be a bit better if we cut straight to the lore cave after the magic crystal scene, but that's the least of this movie's problems. Speaking of this movie's problems, we come to the lore cave, and I have many things to say about what's revealed here.
It says that in the beginning, Hollow Earth lived in harmony with the surface world.
What does in the beginning mean in this context of the Iwi? Because they certainly aren't talking about when the planet formed, and if they're talking about when their culture first formed, they'd still have no idea because they know fuck and all about ecology.
The Titans were the guardians of nature, and the great apes became the protectors of humanity.
Okay, but what are the Titans protecting nature from when this was written? I guess other Titans that wanted to expand their territory too much? But wouldn't that just be them acting on their natural instincts? And I guess the monkeys wanted to protect humans from those Titans? I'm trying to be as good faith as I can, but the vagueness of this lore dump makes getting anything of worth difficult.
But a great evil threatened the peace. A powerful and ruthless ape, desperate to conquer the surface world, led his tribe into war against the one they call the monster who ate a star. The war with the apes nearly destroyed Godzilla, but after a great battle, he imprisoned the apes in a fiery realm of Hollow Earth. Their false king remains obsessed with reaching the surface.
Okay, and where was Mothra in all of this? Her and Godzilla have a symbiotic relationship. Surely she would help with this like she did with Ghidorah. Kong and Dewey arrive at Mount Doom and... why are the monkeys moving rocks? They could be gathering food or useful resources from the surrounding area. I mean, we know that they do send monkeys outside of Mordor. This is just a waste of slave labor. Kong is then berated by a douche monkey for helping someone up, and he knocks him dead. This gets the attention of our main villain of the movie, the Scar King. Why is he here? We saw him earlier when the outpost was destroyed. That footage had the same reflective reddish pupils. So he'd rather watch his slaves move rocks around instead of acting on his main motivation of getting out of Hollow Earth. That is some apex clown behavior. Clown King and Kong fight, and it's fine. It's a perfectly serviceable short scuffle with Clown King using his superior experience and range to get the upper hand. After Kong gets his second win, Clown King unleashes his secret weapon, Timu Crystalac. Yeah, bet I just unlocked some memories for some of you. Timu Crystalac is controlled by some sort of crystal. How does it work? Shut up, idiot. Look at the giant ice dinosaur and clap at the keys. After Kong escapes, we cut back to more lore dumping.
Her power covered the Earth in the last ice age.
This means that all of this was written down when the last glacial maximum first happened, which was about 20,000 years ago. Assuming that Clown King was sealed away in that time, that means in potentially 20,000 years, Clown King hasn't found a way out until Kong triggered a sinkhole with his trap. In 20,000 years, there has been no events that caused something similar to happen. No seismic activity, no titans digging through rocks for various reasons, not even any fights for territory or mass migrations that might have done something similar to Kong's traps. Nothing. And apparently in 20,000 years, Clown King has not found a way out. And even if we assume Clown King was trapped right before Godzilla's discovery in 1954, that's still 70 plus years in universe for Clown King to search for a way out. But instead, he has presumably done fuck and all.
The Iwi believe that at the end of the world, one of their own will return. An awakened Mothra, defender of the Iwi and ancient ally of Godzilla.
There's a lot to unpack here. What the fuck do you mean Mothra needs the Chosen One to wake her ass up? She didn't need that shit when she fought Ghidorah. Did you forget that? It's not even the first time she helped Godzilla fight him. Remember this cave painting? Who the fuck woke her up then? Are we also forgetting that Mothra is still on the surface? Her egg was found, and it's more than likely Monarch took custody of it. Unless this is a different Mothra, which isn't stated or implied at all.
But wait! There's more!
And the absolute astounding amount of contrivance and convenience required to have Jia here so she can wake Mothra up is absurd. Eileen has to be a terrible mother multiple times, bringing her here to begin with, despite the reason for doing so being utterly irrelevant for why they're here. Not immediately going to the surface after finding the remains of the outpost or watching someone get eaten by a fucking log. A bug landing on a button to an irrigation system that Jia figures out is a button in the first place. She just so happens to pick out the right stream of water to follow. Just a stack of contrivance and convenience piled up to the fucking Carmen line. How can anyone not look at this script and feel ashamed that you've produced something so unimaginably retarded? I cannot fathom the absolute depths of Down syndrome-addled narcotics it took to write this movie. And if you thought we were done with the convenience, you're sorely mistaken. As Kong is being pursued by the clown army, they get picked off by Kong's traps. Man, how lucky that this particular sinkhole that leads to Mordor opened up right next to his hunting ground. What's even more lucky is that when the clown army doesn't fall for the final trap, Dewey Kong shows up just in time too, even though it's highly unlikely that he would get there in time given he was still in Mordor when the rest were charging out. He's smaller, so he couldn't cover the same distance, both by running or climbing, and it's a very long way from Mordor to the sinkhole. Not only that, but he'd have to climb onto the top of the cliff where the rocks are. However, not all the monkeys died from the rocks. I guess using a meat shield makes you resistant to being crushed by giant fucking boulders. We finally catch up with Godzilla.
This is Monarch Air Team to base, tracking over Godzilla's location. We've closed the shipping lanes within 300 miles. Plasma readings indicate he's absorbing everything in there.
And that's it for now. He's just absorbing the stored solar radiation, something we already knew. This scene's purpose is just to remind people that yes, Godzilla is still part of the plot. Please clap. Back with the Tizen Brigade as Eileen has the closest thing to a coherent character moment in the movie.
You know, I made a deal with myself when I became a mother.
I said to myself, I don't care what you have to sacrifice, what you have to give up. You will do right by that little girl.
It's certainly nice to see, but falls apart when she says doing right by that little girl. And by doing right by that little girl means bringing her to this monster-infested nightmare realm. Like, I get and kind of appreciate Eileen feeling as if she's not good enough and believing that Gia would be better off with her own people, but the absolute contrived nonsense to get here cuts the legs out from under it. Kong somehow arrives at the cocoon.
How did they find this place?
He must have sensed Gia.
How? Did he track her through scent? Do Titans have some kind of extra sense we're not aware of? But we need to have one of Clown King's minions find the Iwi cocoon so we can go and tell him there's a portal in there. Even though he should be scouring the upper parts of Hollow Earth for the dozens, if not hundreds of portals that we know already exist there. Anyways, Godzilla is done absorbing solar energy and has gone Super Saiyan Rosé. However, this is only to remind the audience that, once again, yes, Godzilla is in this movie because we go back to the Thyssen Brigade to find out that Kong's hand is permanently damaged from the frostbite. And their solution is Project Powerhouse. What is Project Powerhouse? Well, it's a power gauntlet that was just lying the fuck around at the destroyed outpost despite being scrapped.
That prototype was almost finished when they pulled the funding.
How many times do we have to do this, movie? How many times must you damage my brain? Why the fuck is this down here if it was a scrapped project? Wouldn't it be stored somewhere? Or dismantles and having its parts reused or potentially even sold? And how goddamn lucky that the ship that transports it wasn't destroyed with the rest of the outpost. But who fucking cares? Look at the monkey with the fucking power fist. Please clap, you absolute brainless hemorrhoids.
Making one of the strongest Titans even stronger didn't go over so well, so we got shut down.
That implies that the government didn't know the initial purpose of Project Powerhouse, because why would anyone want to make giant monsters stronger given this world's history? Which means that either they didn't care to ask and just gave away hundreds of millions of dollars, or that Eileen lied about its purpose. If the former is true, then boy does that dial the retard meter up by 1 billion. Just throwing money away at a project you know nothing about. And yes, I know the US government in real life is retarded, but I would imagine after over a decade of existing alongside giant monsters, they would be far more frugal when it comes to spending money in terms of defense. And if the latter is true, then why is Eileen still employed? The government will draw and quarter you for even the most minor of tax offenses. Could you imagine what they would do if someone lied to get funding so they could make a weapon for a Titan? You'd be locked away for a very long time. Dewey tells Kong that Clown King is coming, so he decides to go get Godzilla. After surfacing near the pyramids, Kong issues a challenge roar and Godzilla answers it. You know, if Godzilla getting out of the water causes a massive tidal wave, I assume that diving into the water from that height would as well. So I'm just going to assume that's what happened and Godzilla killed a bunch more people. Anyways, Gia summons Mothra, who just materializes out of nothing, because magic just exists in this world now. How else am I supposed to interpret this? And yes, I know Mothra has historically been portrayed as a more supernatural kaiju, but not in the Monsterverse. She was just a giant moth in King of the Monsters. There was nothing mystical about her. Now she's just fucking magic, because why bother to adhere to any form of continuity when you can make lemmings clap? Mothra goes to the surface as Godzilla kills more people. Then Kong and Godzilla have a scuffle as the Great Pyramids, symbols of humanity's ingenuity that have stood for 5,000 years, monuments that were considered ancient even by the Roman Empire, one of the 7 wonders of the world, irreplaceable cultural touchstones of humanity, are reduced to fucking rubble. If anything proves why Mechagodzilla or something similar is a necessity, it's this right here. But I will save the full force of that rant for the end. We do get Godzilla suplexing Kong. That made me smile a bit. Not a lot, but something is better than nothing. Mothra shows up and saves Kong from dying and convinces Godzilla to help Kong. Wow, it's really fucking lucky that Eileen brought Gia down here instead of being a responsible mother, or Kong would have died. It's also convenient that Godzilla chose to use his atomic breath instead of just curb stomping Kong's head in. How the fuck did you get here? Were you teleported? Because you sure as fuck weren't carried here, because if you were, you should be fucking dead by the gravity inversion. If you were teleported, then can Mothra just teleport herself as well? Because if she can, that breaks some things that happened previously. I miss when Titans were portrayed as just animals following their natural instincts, not cartoonishly evil retards or whatever the fuck this shit is. The Iwi come up with a plan to stop Clown King, and it's certainly something.
With the chemical reaction, this liquid metal becomes an engineering mechanism, forcing the two electromagnetic pyramids together, causing an anti-gravity shockwave.
That is some absolute fucking nonsense you just spewed from your noise hole. A chemical reaction will stop mass from attracting mass. Sure, why not? We've already blown up the shark after jumping it. Might as well add more retarded world mechanics. Clown King arrives and has Timu Crystalak freeze the Fleam crystals before they can touch. Really fucking convenient, he arrived at the very last second before they touched. Vepro then comes in with a bunch of electrical creatures. Oh yeah, these were established earlier when they entered Hollow Earth, as well as their electrical powers. The Electro Burbs stall the clown army long enough for Godzilla and Kong to arrive. This shot would be a lot cooler if everything surrounding it wasn't complete Mega Nulon piss. The gravity inverts and we get kind of an okay action sequence. The addition of a full 360 access allows for some creative use of the floating rocks as platforms, Godzilla being more adept to this environment due to his aquatic nature, which allows him to better navigate the fight. An actual fucking brain cell was used to write and choreograph this sequence. It's amazing what you can do when you actually give a shit. The monkey and lizard teams go through the portal and Kong, for some reason, tries to stop himself despite watching Clown King go through the portal, and in doing so loses his axe. Good job, idiot. Now you're down a weapon. They all end up in Rio and it gets fucking obliterated. Kong just then comes out of nowhere. I guess he and Godzilla weren't ejected upwards? And how did Kong surface first when not only did Godzilla enter the portal first, but his momentum was slowed? Actually, Godzilla entered the portal before Timu Crystalak, so he should have been ejected before her. Also, Clown King apparently has no peripheral vision because he should have seen Kong coming. And now we come to the final fight. The CGI sludge orgy of models slamming into each other. I mean, it's not offensively awful like Godzilla vs. Kong, but it's still loaded with issues. Clown King doesn't pay attention to Godzilla in this scene when he absolutely should, especially since Godzilla trapped him in Mordor to begin with. He just evil laughs until Godzilla T-poses at him. When he gets back the magic crystal after it's broken off his whip, he just smirks when he gets it back instead of, paying attention to the nuclear diapsid glowing bright fucking pink. How is it that Timu Crystalak can freeze over Clown King's entire body when Kong was blocking the ice blast with his power fist for a much longer period of time and not experience the same thing? Then we have Dewey Kong coming in and destroying the magic crystal. And the thought of this failed abortion helping out in any significant way makes me ill, especially given how hyper fucking convenient it is. Mothra returns Gia, who I assume was just standing on the Sphinx in the Sahara fucking desert, and somehow looks perfectly fine. Everyone hugs, Godzilla goes back to using our historical monument as a goddamn bed, and Kong returns to Mordor. I don't think you could make a more incoherent pile of slop even if you engineered it in a lab. The plot is so fucking garbage that there's not much more I could add without repeating myself. The characters are fucking terrible. I mean, Vepro is fine, I guess. He's a super chill and nice guy. That's it. There is certainly a charm to him, kind of, and there's really no inconsistencies with him, but that's about it. Gia is the most important human character, while also being the most underexplored. She feels isolated and alone due to believing she is the last of her culture. It's why she forms such a close connection to Kong, as he believes he is the last of his species, as well as being a major part of the Iwi culture in general. But we barely get into what her culture even is. Are there any foods she misses that could only be made on Skull Island? Any traditions that come across as strange? We see later that it's polite to make prolonged eye contact in Iwi society, but is considered strange and off-putting by many surface societies. Perhaps we could see her doing this with someone and it puts people off from interacting with her. There's so much to explore with this idea, but nothing outside of the superficial is done with it. And the plot contriving itself in order to have her take place in it also doesn't help things. And with Gia comes Eileen, who is the worst human character in the movie. She is both the exposition machine to feed the audience the retarded and utterly nonsensical lore. She wants her daughter to be safe and happy, but brings her into the most dangerous place on the planet and even acknowledges it as a bad idea. This isn't letting her stay up late or something where this type of logic would work. This is bringing your child into a place where monsters can be around every corner and you wouldn't even know it. She allows Gia to wake Mothra up and just let the giant monster take her to the fucking surface. Amazing, outstanding parenting. I have no idea why she was written this way, nor do I even understand how you could make such a non-character so utterly unlikable, but, you know, good job, I guess. And now we come to the character with the most wasted potential, Black Alex Jones. The comedic relief, who is here to say kooky and silly things because conspiracy theories are funny. However, if you look into what has been presented to us with this character, this choice becomes completely baffling. It's implied that his wife died from a Titan-related incident, hence his obsession with them. His podcast is even called Titan Truth, and he calls his audience Titan Truthers. And this obsession has led him down multiple conspiracy rabbit holes. And while he was proven right about some of them, he is also portrayed as buying into really stupid ones, like thinking that the government has organic tracking devices on people.
Oh, I shower with bleach. No, what?
Prevention against organic tracking technology?
Or that fluoride in the water is designed to make you complacent.
Water. They put fluoride in it. Learned it from the Nazis.
Theory is it makes you docile.
And let's not forget he spent 5 years infiltrating Apex in order to be some kind of whistleblower. Regardless if he was right about Apex, to spend half a decade trying to uncover a conspiracy that is fueled by a personal tragedy is incredibly sad. But the movie isn't concerned with trying to put together anything meaningful. Just give him a few pictures and one scene and call it a day. Now please laugh as he talks about his trolls. Kong is weird. His longing for connection with his own kind does tie into his history, so it's mostly consistent, except when he uses Dewey as a club and threatens him, but then shows him kindness when he offers him food. Was his threat a bluff? No idea, never specified. He never apologizes for using him as a weapon either, leaving me fucking confused at this weird contradiction. But overall, he's fine, I guess. Which is kind of stupid that one of the better characters is a fucking monkey, but here we are. And now we come to the worst character in the movie, Clown King. He wants to escape Mordor and go to the surface, but once he finds the path out of Mordor, he just sits around, jerking off, and watches his slaves move rocks. That is entirely contradictory to what his motivations are. If he was so hell-bent on ruling the surface that he challenged Godzilla, then he should be expending every resource he has to find a portal to the surface. He is more concerned about his magic rock than the atomic dinosaur that he has first-hand experience with, and should know to never take your eyes off him. And he keeps said magic rock at the end of his whip like a fucking lemming. It is the most valuable tool he has, and making it a part of the thing that he swings at other monsters risks losing it, just like what happened in the final fight. Great job, dumbass. I'm not expecting complexity or depth from him. I am perfectly fine with him being one-dimensionally evil. What I expect is for his actions and motivations to be consistent with his history. Now it's time to talk about This utterly fucking retarded world these completely retarded characters live in. Every single major country should either have a super weapon or should be in the process of making one. We have a precedent for this in the Oxygen Destroyer, and given the amount of destruction that has happened since, we would be seeing those mass-produced. We should see Mechagodzilla being rebuilt and replicated. At the very least, we would see some kind of deterrent like a repurposed Orca. The United States especially would be mass-producing anti-Titan weapons because our capital was destroyed in King of the Monsters. But no, we let Godzilla explode giant spiders spreading God knows what parasites or bacteria everywhere. We let him destroy parts of our history because he fights the battles we can't. That's why Mechagodzilla is necessary. Because only we care about the preservation of our history, culture, and have our people's safety in mind. We could finally fight those battles we couldn't. Instead, we sit on our hands and build weapons for Titans. Weapons that cost taxpayer money. Something that the population would riot over because why are you making monsters that destroy our homes even stronger? Speaking of the people that live in this world, given everything that has happened previously, everyone would be living in perpetual fear. Not only are there monsters that live on the surface, there are monsters that live below us with hundreds of portals for them to come to the surface available. And monsters that come from other planets. There would be protests and potentially even riots of people angry and frustrated that their governments do nothing to ensure their safety. Religions would incorporate Titans into their prophecies and texts. Entire new religions would be formed around Titans. But the average everyday person who simply wants to live their normal life would despise Titans. Hate them with every fiber of their being. They'd want them all exterminated. And if the government won't make anti-Titan weapons that would do that, then corporations similar to Apex certainly would. Governments themselves would also become more centralized and militarized for quicker responses. And that's not even getting into the geopolitical implications. The Alpha as a concept has been thrown into the bin despite being a major plot point previously. Godzilla doesn't just make Cthulhu Spider leave Rome, nor does he call on the other Titans to help with the fight with Clown King. Because if he did, the fight would be hilariously one-sided. Godzilla by himself was able to steal the monkeys away in Mordor. A Super Saiyan Rosé with several powerful titans, one of which you can create massive shockwaves simply by flying, would beat Clown King and Timu Crystalac without much effort, making the Godzilla-Kong team-up pointless. So it was thrown away. The other massive world-building issue is the Iwi. How exactly was their prophecy formed? Can they see the future? Why isn't Iwi from Skull Island needed to wake up Mothra? Why is Mothra magical now? All of these plot-critical things are presented to us with no explanation or even inference as to how they came to be. Or in the case of Mothra, how she became magical and now needs to be woken up through special conditions. My point here is that there's so little acknowledgement of the history of this world and the effects it would have that it stops being a lived-in world with a history and instead a giant sandbox for CGI models to smash together, only to be reset so we can do this retarded nonsense all over again. I call this video an unbridled annihilation, not just to honor the Long Man, but because it annihilates everything that came before and the possibility for this franchise to be good. If this slop can make money hand over fist by throwing the idea of coherent storytelling out the window, then why bother getting better? Why bother giving a shit when people will gladly lap this sludge up? And so, the consistent retconning, poor storytelling, and characters whose only purpose is to push the shitty plot forward until we get to monsters incoherently hitting each other will continue. Because that's all Godzilla ever was, right? That's all kaiju films in general ever were, right? That's all they should be, right? Yeah, no, fuck you. Take your retarded superficial sludge and shove it up your ass. Stop being content with this shit and demand better. Because if you continue being content with this horse shit, continue being content with having your intelligence insulted, continue excusing this cinematic afterbirth by saying an entire IP and genre were nothing more than monsters hitting each other, eating it up like the Disney shills do with Star Wars and Marvel, then it will only get worse. To the point where even the most avid defenders will stop watching. Because schlock can only get you so far. The superficial can only carry a franchise so much. It happened with Marvel, it happened with Star Wars, and it will happen with the Monsterverse. I'm done with this ocean of decaying elephant semen that has the audacity to call itself a cinematic universe. Don't expect any more Monsterverse content from me in the future. May the Monsterverse die, and I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. Have a nice day, and until next time.